Hey everyone, ready to level up. Today we're doing a deep dive into the growth mindset.
Ooh, good one.
You know, that whole idea about how you can actually grow your abilities, not just stuck with what you've got.
Right. It's not about being smart or talented from day one. It's knowing you can always get better.
Exactly. We've got tons of stuff you guys have sent in, articles, your own notes, all sorts of things.
Yeah, we're going to pull out the most useful bits and really break it down.
And the best part, this isn't just some fluffy self-help stuff,
Nope, this is legit, backed by real research.
like from that psychologist Carol Dweck. You've probably heard of her.
Her work is kind of the foundation for all this.
Okay, so one big thing that comes up a lot in the stuff you sent, this idea of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Yeah, those are the two main camps.
It's almost like, imagine a plant stuck in a tiny pot. You know, it can only get so big, right? Limited by its container.
Oh, that's a good analogy. That's your fixed mindset.
But with a growth mindset, it's like that plant's roots can just keep expanding.
No matter how much it grows, the pot doesn't matter.
Exactly. Because the belief is different. It's not, I'm stuck with this much intelligence.
It's my intelligence and talents, those can be developed.
Okay, so how do we develop them? What does that actually look like in real life?
It all comes down to effort, a love of learning, and persistence.
Like not giving up when things get tough.
Right. Someone with a growth mindset, they see a challenge, they're like, bring it on. This is how I get better.
Whereas someone with a fixed mindset, they might avoid the challenge altogether.
Yeah, they might be too scared of messing up or looking dumb.
Oh, that's so relatable. I've totally been there.
We all have. It's that fear of failure holding us back.
But the research shows that with this growth mindset, even failures become valuable.
Totally. It's like Thomas Edison said he didn't fail 10,000 times with the light
He
bulb.
just found 10,000 ways it didn't work.
Each failure was just data, helping him figure out the next step.
So imagine if you could reframe every mistake that way.
Not as a sign you're bad at something, but as information you can use to grow.
It would totally change how you approach everything.
And it would take so much pressure off, freeing you up to actually experiment and learn.
Okay, so beyond just feeling better about our goofs, why else should we care about this whole growth mindset thing?
Well, the stuff you all sent in it talks about some pretty amazing benefits.
Like real, tangible ways this mindset can impact your life.
It's not just about feeling warm and fuzzy, This affects how you handle all kinds of stuff.
Give us the highlights.
So first up, resilience. Remember that plant analogy?
Strong roots helping it weather any storm.
Same for us. Challenges will always come up, but a growth mindset helps you bounce back.
Instead of getting knocked down and staying there.
You're like, okay, what did I learn from that? How can I use this to grow?
Love it. What else?
Think about how much easier it is to learn when you believe you can improve.
Oh, for sure. If you think you're just bad at math, you're probably not going to put in the effort.
Exactly. That's a fixed mindset talking. But if you believe you can get better at math, well.
Then you're more likely to practice, get tutoring, do whatever it takes.
And that goes for anything. A new skill, a new language, anything you're trying to learn.
It's like you're giving yourself permission to be a beginner, to stumble a bit.
Knowing that's all part of the process, not a sign you're a failure.
It's pretty cool how this mindset even affects our relationships, according to the research.
Oh yeah, huge impact. Think about how you react to feedback.
With a fixed mindset, it can feel like a personal attack.
Like you're being judged as a person.
But a growth mindset reframes that. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, how can I use this information to grow?
You're not afraid to hear where you can improve because you know you can actually do something with that feedback.
And that makes for healthier relationships all around, right? Less defensiveness, more openness.
Absolutely. And speaking of, let's talk about your career.
How does this all play into that?
Well, think about it. Who do you think employers want to hire?
Someone who's willing to learn and grow, for sure.
Exactly. Someone who's adaptable, curious, not afraid of new challenges.
Because in today's world, things change so quickly.
You need to be able to keep up. And employers are looking for people who are not only skilled, but also have that hunger to keep learning.
They're the ones who bring fresh ideas,
Yeah.
help the whole team evolve.
So if you're thinking about your career, cultivating a growth mindset is a pretty smart move.
Okay, so we've covered why this growth mindset is so awesome, but let's get real. How do we know if we're secretly stuck in that fixed mindset?
Like, what are the red flags?
Yeah, any signs we should be looking out for?
The stuff you sent in actually gives us a little self-assessment.
Oh, like a checklist.
Kind of. A way to see if we're unknowingly holding ourselves back.
I'm ready to be called out. Hit me with it.
All right, first up. Do you find yourself avoiding tough tasks?
Ooh, guilty. Sometimes I definitely let fear hold me back from things that seem too difficult.
That's a common one. It's that fear of failure creeping in.
Okay, what else? What's another sign?
This one's subtle. Do you care more about seeming smart than actually learning?
Hmm, interesting. I think we've all been there at some point.
It's easy to get caught up in appearances,
Like wanting to look like you have it all figured out.
but a growth mindset is all about being curious, embracing the learning process.
Even if it means admitting you don't know something.
Exactly. It's choosing to be a student for life.
Okay, give us another one from this fixed mindset checklist.
All right, this one can hit hard. Does fear of failure make you feel like a failure as a person?
Whoa, that's deep.
It's easy to internalize setbacks, let them define us.
Like I messed up, therefore I am a mess up.
Right. But a growth mindset helps us separate our worth from our performance.
You can mess up and still believe in your ability to learn and improve.
You're not defined by your mistakes.
That takes a lot of pressure off. All right, last one from this self-assessment. Any other signs to watch out for?
Think about how you react to feedback. Do you ignore it because it's uncomfortable?
Oof, yeah, been there too.
It's natural to get defensive, but a growth mindset sees feedback as a gift.
Even if it's not wrapped in the prettiest paper.
It's information. It can help you get better.
It's like that saying, feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Right. It might not always taste good, but it gives you the fuel you need to grow.
So simply being aware of these fixed mindset moments is a huge first step.
Exactly. We all have those tendencies. It's human.
The key is to catch ourselves and start shifting our thinking.
We've got the power to choose how we respond.
So we've laid the groundwork. We know what a growth mindset is, why it matters, and how to spot when we might be stuck.
But how do we actually shift gears?
How do we start cultivating this awesome mindset in our own lives?
I'm ready for the actionable stuff.
Me too. I'm betting the source material has some practical advice for us.
Oh, it does. And the good news is it's not complicated.
Lay it on us.
It's all about making small, consistent changes in our thinking and behavior.
I love that. Small steps, big impact.
Ready for some hacks to get you started?
Bring on the hacks.
Welcome back. It's wild how just changing how you think can have such a big effect.
Right. Last time we were talking about what a growth mindset really is. It's not just being positive. It's like rewiring your brain almost.
And we even did that little checklist.
Oh, yeah, to see if any of that fixed mindset stuff was sneaking into our lives.
I think we all had some aha moments there.
For sure. But I'm still kind of chewing on that question you left us with.
Oh, yeah, about how everything could be a chance to learn.
That one really stuck with me. Even the frustrating stuff could help you grow.
Totally. But one thing I keep thinking about is what we were saying about employers.
Oh, yeah, how they really value people with growth mindsets.
It makes sense, though, right? Who
Yeah.
wouldn't want that on their team? Someone adaptable, always curious.
And not afraid of a challenge.
But it goes deeper than just, learning some new software for your job or getting a certificate.
Yeah, it feels like it's just part of how you approach work.
Built into your attitude.
Like it changes how you interact with colleagues, too, not just the tasks themselves.
Someone with a growth mindset, they're naturally going to ask more questions, want feedback.
And they're more likely to try new things, step outside their comfort zone.
They're not afraid to say, I don't know this, but I want to learn it.
I bet those are the people who come up with the really innovative ideas, too.
Because they're not scared of experimenting, maybe messing up a little.
Think about who you'd rather work with.
Someone stuck in their ways or someone eager to learn, always looking for solutions.
Easy choice. Give me the growth mindset person every time.
So it's not just good for you, it's good for the whole team, the whole company even.
It creates that culture of, let's keep getting better.
This reminds me of what we were talking about before about celebrating effort.
Not just the results, right?
Especially important in a team, I think.
If you only care about who's hitting the targets, you miss out on so much.
You're not recognizing all the hard work people are putting in, even if things aren't perfect yet.
It's about acknowledging that everyone's on their own journey.
We all have different strengths, things we're still working on.
It creates that safe space where people feel okay to take risks.
They know they'll be supported, even if they mess up.
That's huge EE. It takes the fear out of learning, helps people really shine.
And when you've got that kind of culture, you get more innovation, people pushing their limits.
Makes so much sense. But how do we actually cultivate this growth mindset?
Like, it's one thing to understand it, but another to live it every day.
That's the million-dollar question. Is there some secret formula?
Well, the good news is this source material we're looking at, it gives us some real strategies.
Oh, good. I was hoping for some actionable stuff.
Remember those hacks we talked about in the first part?
Yeah, those were great. Especially the one about adding yet to I can't statements.
So simple, but it changes everything.
Instead of I can't do this, it's I can't do this yet.
Suddenly there's possibility, like you're opening a door instead of running into a wall.
And it's not just about what we tell ourselves, it's also how we treat others.
That celebrating effort thing we talked about?
How can we actually do that in a genuine way? For ourselves and for other people.
It's about recognizing the whole process, not just the end result.
So not just great job on that presentation.
More like, wow, all the research you did for that really shows.
It's about noticing the effort behind the scenes.
And it doesn't have to be just words either. Could be a handwritten note, a little gift.
Public acknowledgement, whatever feels right.
As long as it's specific and genuine.
This also makes me think about getting feedback. How can we apply a growth mindset to that? Especially when it's not exactly positive feedback.
It's tough, right? Our instinct is to get defensive.
Big time. But it's about reframing how we see it.
Feedback is just information, it's data, even if it's packaged in a way we don't like.
Sometimes it's that packaging that makes us freak out.
It triggers our ego, But we can choose to see it differently.
Like that breakfast of champions thing.
Ha! Exactly. Might not taste good, but it helps you grow.
So instead of ignoring it, we try to be curious.
What can I learn from this? Even if it's hard to hear.
Even if the person giving the feedback isn't being super tactful, WE can still choose how to receive it.
Find the valuable nuggets and use those to improve.
We're in control of our own growth, basically.
And this reminds me of what we talked about earlier, creating that safe space for learning.
Oh yeah, that applies to how we give feedback too.
It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
If you're coming from a growth mindset, you're focused on the person's potential, not their flaws.
Offering guidance, not judgment.
Helping them develop, not tearing them down.
And it becomes a collaboration, We're in this together.
I think that same collaborative spirit can apply to the whole growth mindset journey.
You're not alone in this. Actually, the source material hints at that too.
About having a support system.
Mentors, allies, even just friends who are also into this stuff.
People who get it, who can encourage you.
They can offer a different perspective, help you stay accountable.
Like having your own personal board of directors for growth.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, as you embrace a growth mindset, you naturally start inspiring others.
You become part of their support system.
It's a whole positive cycle.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, though.
I know, right? There's always more to learn.
What else is coming up in part 3 of our growth mindset adventure?
Well, it looks like we're going to dive into some real-life examples next.
Oh, cool.
People who've used this mindset to achieve amazing things.
I love stories like that. So inspiring.
They faced challenges, setbacks, all kinds of stuff.
But they came out the other side even stronger.
They're proof that this stuff really works.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I gotta say, spending all this time with this growth mindset stuff, it's really changed how I look at things.
I know, right? It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
I'm finding opportunities to learn everywhere now. It's kind of wild.
That's the magic of it. We've talked about what did I TIS, why it's important, even gave you guys some tips to start using it.
But sometimes, what really gets me fired up is hearing about how other people have used it.
Like real-life success stories.
Yeah. The source material we've been looking at, it mentioned some examples.
People who've done incredible things thanks to this mindset.
Okay, spill the tea. Who are these growth mindset superstars?
Well, it doesn't name names, but it gives us a sense of what's possible.
So what kinds of things did these people achieve?
We're talking about people who faced some serious obstacles.
Like what?
Maybe they were told they weren't talented enough, or they came from tough backgrounds, or they had huge setbacks in their careers.
Stuff that would make most people give up.
But they didn't let those challenges define them.
They're like, watch me prove you wrong.
Exactly. That's the growth mindset in action. They didn't let a fixed mindset hold them back.
They believed they could learn, adapt, overcome anything.
And I bet they had people around them who believed in them too.
Speaking of, you know how the source talked about how important mentors and allies are?
Oh yeah, having that support system is huge.
It's like having a team in your corner, reminding you of what you're capable of.
Especially when you start doubting yourself.
And I bet these growth mindset champions, they didn't just have mentors.
They probably became mentors themselves, helping others along the way.
Paying it forward, love that. It's like this mindset is contagious, spreads from person to person.
It creates a ripple effect.
But I'm also curious about the journey itself. Did these people just achieve success overnight.
Oh, definitely not. The source makes it clear that it's a process, it takes time,
There were probably bumps along the way.
failures, setbacks, all that stuff. But the difference is they didn't let it stop them.
They saw it as feedback, as learning experiences, as stepping stones.
And they probably celebrated those small wins along the way, kept them motivated.
Exactly. This all ties back to what we were talking about before, about embracing the process.
Growth isn't a straight line, it's full of twists and turns.
And sometimes those detours lead to the most amazing discoveries,
Like those happy accidents you hear about in science.
where a mistake ends up leading to a breakthrough.
A growth mindset helps us see those mistakes as
Not
opportunities.
as the end of the world.
It allows us to stay curious, experiment, push ourselves.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. But now I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, how do we actually make this growth mindset stick in our daily lives?
That's the real challenge, right? It's one thing to get excited about the idea.
But how do we turn it into a habit?
Well, the source doesn't give us a magic formula,
Barn,
but it emphasizes that it takes conscious effort, practice.
like building a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. So it's not a one-time fix, it's an ongoing commitment.
You got to keep showing up with that growth mindset, even when it's tough.
Constantly reminding ourselves of these principles, looking for ways to apply them.
It eventually becomes a way of life, a lens through which you see everything.
And as you grow, you can help others grow too.
Imagine if everyone had this mindset.
Challenges would become exciting. Failures would be seen as feedback.
What a world that would be.
It all starts with us, though, making the choice to embrace growth.
To challenge those limiting beliefs we all have.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question.
A good one, I hope.
What's one small step you can take today to cultivate a growth mindset?
Maybe add yet to an I can't statement.
Or ask for feedback on something you're working on?
Or just celebrate a small win you had today. Anything.
We're all on this journey together, guys.
Let's keep learning, keep growing, keep inspiring each other.
This has been the deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so today we're going to be looking at some growth mindset strategies.
Yeah.
You sent over how to develop a growth mindset part 2.
Yeah.
And we're going to be taking a deep dive into it.
Cool.
I'm excited about this one because it seems like it's a very practical guide to
Yeah.
actually using the growth mindset.
I think what's interesting about this particular source
Yeah.
is it does really focus on that.
Yeah.
It's not just about what a growth mindset is.
Right.
It's about like how to use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the first things that jumps out is this idea of shifting from proving to improving.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think there's a huge shift, like when you think about it.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to prove yourself to others, it's more about looking inward
Yeah.
and improving. And it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a much more dynamic way to live.
So instead of saying, like, I need to ace this presentation to show everyone how smart I am,
Right.
it's more like, how can I use this presentation as an opportunity to improve my public speaking skills?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being curious.
Yeah.
It's about asking questions.
Yeah.
Seeing everything as a learning opportunity.
I love that because it takes the pressure off of having to be perfect
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah,
which I think we all struggle with.
for sure.
I know I certainly do. And it makes me think about how many times I've been so focused on the outcome
Yeah.
of a project that I've missed out on all those little opportunities to
Right.
learn along the way
For sure.
and grow.
Yeah, and that ties right into the next thing they talk about, which is setting process-oriented goals.
Okay, break that down for me.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a process-oriented and outcome-based goal?
Well, outcome-based goals are focused on that end result.
Right.
So it's like losing 10 pounds or getting a promotion or whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really tell you how to get there.
Right.
Process-oriented goals, on the other hand, are all about the actions that you take consistently.
So instead of fixating on the number on the scale, I'm going to work out 3 times a week.
Yes.
Eat healthy.
Right.
Make healthy food choices.
It's a subtle but powerful shift in focus
Yeah.
because you're building habits and skills that will ultimately lead to the desired outcome.
It's almost like it's a more solid foundation
Right.
for success.
Yeah.
It's like trust the process,
Exactly.
but we all know how much easier it is to stay committed to our goals when we have the right support system.
Oh, for sure. And this source really emphasizes surrounding yourself with growth-minded individuals.
Right.
So people who are going to encourage you
Yeah.
and challenge you constructively.
Yeah, like a personal cheerleading squad for your brain.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, being around people who value learning and growth
Yeah.
can make a huge difference.
It makes me think about that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right.
So if you want to cultivate a growth mindset,
Yeah.
it makes sense to surround yourself with people who embody that way of thinking.
And, even with the best support system in the world,
Right, yeah.
we're going to face setbacks.
Oh, yeah.
That's just part of life.
Right.
And that's where the idea of self-compassion comes in.
This is so important
Yeah,
because we can be our own worst critics,
absolutely.
especially when things don't go our way.
Yes, a fixed mindset can really amplify that inner critic.
So instead of beating ourselves up and saying, I'm a failure,
Yeah.
it's more like, okay, this didn't go as planned,
Right.
but what can I learn from this experience?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that setbacks are not a reflection of our worth or ability.
Reframing those failures as feedback.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And speaking of reframing,
Yeah.
let's talk about some real-life examples.
Oh, I love a good story.
Well, the source mentions some incredible people who embodied the growth mindset,
Okay.
like Michael Jordan,
Yeah, of course.
the basketball superstar.
Everyone knows Michael Jordan.
Well, what's interesting is that he was actually cut from his high school basketball team.
Whoa. Are you serious? I can't even imagine him not making a team.
Right. But that experience, instead of crushing him, fueled his determination.
Wow.
He used it as motivation to practice harder, refine his skills, and prove himself.
That's amazing. It really shows that even the most talented people face setbacks.
Right.
And it's how they respond to those challenges that really shapes their path.
Exactly. And it highlights how a growth mindset can transform perceived failures into fuel for success.
And speaking of inspiring stories,
Yeah,
what about J.K. Rowling?
Yeah.
I read somewhere that she faced a ton of rejection
that's right.
before finding a publisher for Harry Potter.
Her manuscript was rejected by 12 different publishers before finally finding a home.
That's wild. Imagine the perseverance it took to keep going after that many rejections.
It's a testament to the power of believing in yourself and your vision,
Yeah.
even when others don't see it yet.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to something even deeper about the growth mindset.
Yeah.
It's not just about talent or intelligence.
Yeah.
It's about grit, resilience, and the willingness to keep learning and growing even when it's hard.
So we've seen how a growth mindset can help us reframe setbacks and learn from our experiences.
Right.
But how do we keep that momentum going over the long haul?
That's a great question. And I think that's something we'll dive into even further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. As we're looking at all these growth mindset strategies, it really strikes me as how much it's about the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like a quick fix.
No, it's not a one-time thing.
It's about like a way of thinking.
It is. Yeah, it's a way of thinking. It's like
Yeah.
building a mental muscle.
Yeah.
The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
Right.
And this source actually gives us some really great advice on how to do just that.
Okay, let's hear it. How do we make this a lasting change?
Well, one of the key things that they highlight is regular reflection.
Okay, so taking time to kind of look back and assess where we're at.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about asking yourself some key questions. Like, what have I learned recently?
Yeah.
What challenges am I facing?
Okay.
What adjustments can I make to keep moving forward?
So it's like a performance review,
Yes.
but for your own personal growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just as important as reflection is celebrating those small wins along the way.
I love that it's so easy to get caught up in what we haven't accomplished yet.
Right.
That we forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
Yeah. But those little victories, no matter how small they are,
Yeah.
they reinforce our progress and keep us motivated.
Yeah. It's all about shifting that perspective, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on those big, distant goals, we start to appreciate all those smaller steps.
Yeah. And it makes the journey a lot more enjoyable.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are some other things we can do to keep that growth mindset engine running?
Well, the source also talks about the importance of staying curious.
I love that curiosity is such a powerful force.
It is. It's like a superpower.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can cultivate intentionally. Well, we can read books on new subjects, we can take classes, we can travel to different places, or even just strike up conversations with people who have different perspectives.
It's all about feeding our minds with new information and experiences.
Right. And it keeps us young at heart.
I agree. I agree with that.
Right.
Okay, so staying curious. What else?
And let's talk about reframing those negative thoughts. Those pesky thoughts
Oh, yeah.
that can creep in and try to sabotage our progress.
Like little gremlins.
Exactly, like little gremlins whispering doubts in our ears.
Yeah.
But with a growth mindset, we can learn to recognize those thoughts for what they are.
Right.
Just thoughts, not facts.
Yeah.
And we can choose to reframe them in a more positive and empowering way.
So instead of thinking I'm not good enough,
Right.
it's more like I'm learning and growing and I'm capable of achieving great things.
Exactly. It's about shifting our internal dialogue from self-criticism to self-encouragement.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how powerful our thoughts really are?
It is, yeah, there's research that shows that this kind of positive self-talk can actually change our brain chemistry, making us more
Wow.
resilient and optimistic.
That's powerful stuff.
It is, yeah.
So going back to the source material for a second, one thing that I found really interesting was how it talks about encouraging a growth mindset in others.
Oh, that's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's not just about our own personal growth.
Right.
It's
Right.
about creating a ripple effect
Yeah.
that can inspire those around us.
Yeah. So what's the best way to do that?
Well, they highlight a few key strategies. One is providing constructive feedback that focuses on effort and strategies rather than just outcomes.
So instead of just saying, great job,
Right.
we might say something like, I'm really impressed with how you persevered through that challenge.
Exactly. Yeah. Your problem-solving skills are really shining.
Yeah.
That kind of feedback acknowledges the process, the effort, the learning
Yeah.
that took place, which is at the heart of a growth mindset.
It's like saying, I see your effort, I value your growth, and I believe in your potential.
Exactly.
And that leads perfectly into the next strategy, modeling the growth mindset ourselves.
Oh, yes, leading by example.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about a growth mindset, but
Right.
it's another thing entirely to live it.
Right.
When we share our own experiences of growth,
Yeah.
including our struggles and our setbacks,
Right.
we show others that it's okay to not be perfect, that learning is a continuous process.
Being vulnerable and authentic.
Exactly.
Showing others we're all in this together.
Yeah. And the source mentions one more really important strategy.
Okay.
Fostering an environment where risk-taking is encouraged
Right.
and mistakes are seen as valuable learning opportunities.
That goes back to that whole idea of shifting from proving to improving
Exactly.
that we talked about earlier.
When we create a safe space for experimentation and learning,
Right.
we give people the freedom to try new things, to stretch their limits, and to learn from their mistakes.
Without fear of judgment.
Without fear of judgment, exactly.
It's like creating a culture of curiosity and innovation
Yes.
and continuous improvement.
Absolutely, and I think that goes way beyond just individual growth.
Yeah.
It has the potential to transform teams, organizations, even entire societies.
You know, as we've been talking about all these amazing benefits of a growth mindset,
Yeah.
it's got me thinking,
Yeah.
is there ever a point where focusing on growth could become a problem?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, like, is it possible to be too focused on growth?
I think it's important to remember that growth isn't about constantly pushing ourselves to the point of burnout or striving for some unattainable ideal of perfection.
It's not about becoming a growth robot.
No, it's not about becoming a growth robot. It's
You
about
didn't-
finding a healthy balance,
Yeah.
between challenging ourselves and recognizing our limits,
Right.
between pursuing growth and embracing the present moment.
So it's not about neglecting self-care or pushing ourselves beyond our capacity.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sustainable growth
Yeah.
comes from a place of self-awareness and compassion.
Right.
Being kind to ourselves, celebrating our wins, acknowledging that growth is a lifelong journey.
It's not a destination.
Not a destination, exactly.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
I love that it reminds me of the importance of mindfulness.
Yes.
And being present in the moment, even as we're striving towards our goals.
Growth doesn't always have to be about achieving some grand external goal.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most profound growth happens internally,
Right.
in the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us.
It's about expanding our perspectives, developing our emotional intelligence, becoming more compassionate and understanding individuals.
And I think that kind of inner growth ultimately ripples outward,
Yeah.
influencing how we interact with others and contribute to the world around us.
It makes me think about that quote by Gandhi, "Be the change you wish to see in the world."
It's a perfect way to put it. And, this deep dive into the growth mindset has really been eye-opening. Yeah.
It has.
We've covered so much ground,
Mm-hmm.
from understanding the core principles to exploring practical ways to cultivate it in our own lives and encourage it in others.
Absolutely.
But I think one of the most important things we've touched on is the idea that a growth mindset is not some fixed trait.
Right.
It's something that we can develop and nurture over time
Yeah.
with conscious effort and practice.
Right. And even small shifts in mindset can lead to significant changes in our life.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to share a thought-provoking question that the source material asks.
Okay.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
Wow, that's a powerful question.
Right.
It really gets you thinking
It does.
about what might be holding you back,
Yeah.
those dreams or goals that you might have dismissed because of fear or self-doubt.
It's an invitation to step outside of our comfort zones and explore our full potential.
Absolutely.
But, exploring our full potential can take many forms.
It can.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to talk about how this growth mindset can extend beyond ourselves and impact the world around us. So, as we wrap up our deep dive on these growth mindset strategies, I keep thinking about how this goes beyond just, personal development.
Oh, for sure it does. It's like, how a single drop of water creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
A growth mindset, when embraced individually, can create waves of positive change
Oh, I like that analogy.
in our communities and the world.
Yeah. So how do we actually see that playing out? Like, how can a growth mindset help us tackle those really big, complex challenges we're facing?
Well, I mean, think about it. Some of the key elements of a growth mindset are collaboration,
Yeah.
open-mindedness, a willingness to experiment, a desire to learn and adapt.
Those are all things that seem essential to solving those really difficult problems.
Exactly, especially when you're dealing with diverse perspectives and needing to find innovative solutions.
Right, like climate change.
Yeah, climate change is a great example.
It's such a complex issue.
Yeah, it requires people to work together across disciplines,
Yeah.
challenge existing assumptions, be open to new ideas and technologies.
We have to always be looking for better solutions, learning from our mistakes, and working together to create, a future that's more sustainable.
Exactly, and those same principles apply to other big challenges too, like
Mm.
social inequality or healthcare.
So it's really about always getting better, always improving,
Yeah, a growth mindset helps us to create a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
and challenging the status quo.
Yes, always looking for those more equitable and effective solutions.
It's almost like it helps us to shift our focus from me to we,
Yeah,
from individual success to like collective progress.
that's a really good point, and I think that's where the true power of a growth mindset really lies.
Yeah,
It's not just about individual achievement.
right.
It's about using our collective intelligence and resilience to create a better world for everyone.
Well, this deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like we've gone from the very personal, how to cultivate a growth mindset in our own lives to the global, like how this way of thinking can actually help us address some of humanity's biggest challenges.
And it really just boils down to this.
Hmm.
A growth mindset is not a luxury. It's a necessity.
It's essential in today's world.
Exactly.
It's about giving ourselves the mental tools to face those challenges, learn from our setbacks, and continuously strive for improvement.
Not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
And remember, growth is a journey.
It is. It's not a destination.
It's not about reaching the finish line.
Nope.
It's about lifelong learning, evolving, and contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
I love that.
We've covered so much in this deep dive,
We have.
from, embracing that learner's attitude setting, process-oriented goals, surrounding ourselves with those growth-minded people, and creating that culture of risk-taking.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been, but as with all of our deep dives, we want to leave you with something to think about. And it goes back to that question the source posed. If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
It's such a powerful question to ask yourself.
It is. It really gets you thinking about all those dreams and goals you might have given up on.
Because of fear or self-doubt.
Yeah, it's like an invitation to get outside of our comfort zone.
And really explore our full potential.
So ask yourself that question. Really allow it to spark some curiosity, courage, and a commitment to continuous growth.
Because even those small shifts in mindset can have a profound impact over time.
Not only for ourselves, but for the world we share.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the growth mindset. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to make a positive impact until next time.
All right, so welcome back for the final part of our growth mindset deep dive. It's been quite a journey,
Yeah.
hasn't it? We've explored what a growth mindset actually is, really is. We've uncovered some pretty cool strategies, and now we're gonna figure out how to actually live it. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, making this mindset shift stick,
Yeah.
that's where the real challenge
Yeah.
and the real magic lies.
Absolutely. And the source material that you've provided really highlights that journey. It's not just about understanding the theory.
Right.
It's about navigating the inevitable hurdles and integrating a growth mindset into the fabric of our lives. That's where we see the true transformation happen.
Okay, so our source talks about 4 major obstacles to developing a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And it frames them as mountains to climb, fear of failure, comparing ourselves to others, impatience, and that constant negative self-talk.
Right.
These are some seriously tough peaks.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, I've definitely stumbled on each one.
Oh, it's so relatable, right? It's like these mountains represent different aspects of our inner world that we need to conquer to truly embrace a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is they often work together. Fear of failure can fuel those comparisons, which lead to impatience, and then that spiral of negative thoughts.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we tackle these mountains? Let's start with fear of failure.
Okay.
The source mentions reframing failure as feedback.
Yeah.
Which is a concept I've heard before, but honestly, I struggle to actually put it into practice.
It's a powerful concept, but it takes conscious effort to shift our perspective. Think of it like this. Every time we fail, we're actually gaining valuable data. It's like running an experiment. Sometimes the hypothesis is wrong,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean the experiment was a failure. It just means we need to adjust our approach based on the data we collected.
I like that analogy. So instead of seeing failure as a full stop,
Right.
we should see it as a comma,
Yeah.
a chance to pause, analyze, and course correct.
Exactly. And there are specific techniques that can help with this. The source material doesn't go into this, but have you ever heard of fear setting? Like what Tim Ferriss talks about?
I haven't.
Okay. Well, it's basically a structured way to analyze your fears and develop a plan to overcome them.
Okay.
You define the worst case scenario, brainstorm ways to prevent it,
Yeah.
and even think about how you'd repair the damage if the worst did happen. This process can really help demystify failure and make it less scary.
That's so practical. I'm adding fear setting to my to-do list. All right, let's move on to the next mountain comparison.
Yeah.
This one feels especially relevant in the age of social media where everyone's starting to be showcasing their highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get caught up in comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's perfectly curated public image.
It's a trap that's easy to fall into, and then it can be incredibly discouraging.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The source emphasizes that comparison becomes a problem when we focus solely on the negative.
Right.
There's actually research on something called upward comparison, which, when done right, can actually inspire and motivate us.
Wait, so you're saying comparison isn't always a bad thing?
Not necessarily. The key is being mindful of how we're comparing ourselves.
Okay.
If we're using it to fuel self-doubt and negativity, then yeah, it's harmful.
Yeah.
But if we're using it to, identify role models, learn from other successes, and set aspirational goals,
Right.
then it can actually be a powerful tool for growth.
That's such an interesting perspective. It's not about avoiding comparison altogether,
Right.
but rather about becoming aware of our motives and making sure it's serving our growth, not hindering it.
Exactly. It's about shifting from I'm not good enough compared to them to what can I learn from their journey? How can their success inspire me to strive for more?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to impatience.
But
It's so easy to get frustrated when we're not seeing results as quickly as we'd like,
yeah.
especially when it comes to personal growth and mindset shifts. It's like we expect ourselves to transform overnight.
And that's just not realistic, right?
No.
I love the way the source uses the analogy of gardening to illustrate this point. You plant a seed, you nurture it, and then you patiently wait for it to grow. You wouldn't expect to see a fully blossomed flower the next day, would you?
Definitely not.
No.
But I think we often approach personal growth with that same unrealistic expectation. We want instant results, and when we don't see them, we get discouraged.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
But the key is remembering that growth takes time, consistency, and a lot of nurturing. Instead of focusing solely on the end goal, we need to find joy in the process, in the small steps we take each day towards towards becoming the best version of ourselves.
So it's about celebrating those small wins,
Yes.
those moments of progress, no matter how tiny they may seem.
Absolutely. And remembering that progress isn't always linear, right? There will be days, weeks, even months when we feel like we're not moving forward. But those periods of stagnation are often followed by bursts of growth.
Right.
Just like a plant that, seems dormant for a while before suddenly shooting up new leaves.
That's a really encouraging way to think about it. Okay, on to the last mountain. Negative self-talk.
All right.
This one can be a real energy drainer, constantly questioning ourselves, focusing on our flaws, and doubting our abilities.
And it's something most of us struggle with, right?
Okay.
But the source makes a great point about approaching negative self-talk with self-compassion. Imagine a friend was struggling with these thoughts. What would you say to them?
I'd try to be supportive and understanding.
Yeah.
I'd remind them of their strength
Yeah.
and encourage them to be kinder to themselves.
Exactly. But we often find it much harder to extend that same compassion to ourselves.
Yeah.
We judge ourselves harshly, focus on our shortcomings, and allow those negative thoughts to spiral out of control.
So how do we break free from that cycle?
The source highlights the importance of actively challenging those negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive and realistic ones.
Yeah.
And it's not just about positive affirmations, although those can be helpful.
Right.
It's about digging deeper and understanding the root of these negative thoughts.
This is where it gets really interesting because the source also mentions different types of negative self-talk.
Hmm.
It's not all the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some common types include perfectionism, right?
Where we set impossibly high standards for ourselves.
Right.
And catastrophizing, where we imagine the worst case scenario in every situation.
Yeah.
There's also the all or nothing thinking, where we see things in black and white with no room for nuance.
Okay, so we've identified the different types of negative self-talk. Now how do we actually combat them?
Well, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, offers some really effective techniques for challenging and reframing negative thoughts. For example, one technique is to examine the evidence.
Okay.
When you have a negative thought, ask yourself, what evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it?
So instead of just accepting those negative thoughts as truth, we need to put them on trial and see if they hold up under scrutiny.
Exactly. And that process can be incredibly empowering. It helps us develop a more realistic and balanced view of ourselves, which is essential for cultivating a growth mindset. This has been such an insightful discussion already.
Yeah.
We've explored these 4 common obstacles to a growth mindset,
Right.
and started to uncover some practical strategies for overcoming them.
Yeah.
But how do we actually apply this mindset to different areas of our lives? That's what I'm really curious to explore next.
Yeah.
So we've talked about these inner mountains we need to climb: fear, comparison, impatience, and negative self-talk.
Yeah.
But what I'm really excited to unpack now is how a growth mindset actually plays out in real life.
Right.
The source you've provided gives some great examples of how it can impact everything from education to our relationships and even our personal goals.
It's fascinating, isn't it? You
Yeah.
can think of it like taking this abstract idea of a growth mindset
Yeah.
and suddenly seeing it come to life in all these different areas.
Right.
It's not just some theory anymore. It's a practical tool for navigating the world around us.
Totally. Okay, let's start with education. The source talks about how a growth mindset can totally change how we view learning,
Right.
especially for anyone who's been stuck in that fixed mindset of, I'm either good at this subject or I'm not.
It's a huge shift.
Yeah.
Instead of being solely focused on grades or proving our intelligence, a growth mindset encourages us to actually embrace the challenges, the mistakes, the whole messy process of learning. It's about seeing every hurdle as an opportunity to stretch our brains and expand our understanding.
That reminds me of something I read recently about how our brains actually grow and change throughout our lives.
Yeah.
It's called neuroplasticity.
Oh, yeah.
And it basically means that the more we challenge ourselves mentally, the more we create new neural pathways,
Right.
making our brains stronger and more adaptable.
Exactly. It's like our brains are muscles that need to be exercised. And a growth mindset provides that workout by encouraging us to step outside our comfort zones, tackle new challenges, and even view mistakes as valuable feedback that helps us learn and grow.
So it's not just about getting the right answer or getting that A+ on the test.
Yeah.
It's about the process of figuring things out,
Right.
of struggling and learning and expanding our knowledge.
Yes.
It's about enjoying the journey,
Mm-hmm.
not just the destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And this applies to learning outside the classroom
Okay.
too. Think about picking up a new skill or hobby.
Yeah.
The growth mindset helps us stay motivated even when we hit those inevitable roadblocks.
Yeah.
Because we know that every struggle is bringing us closer to mastery.
Okay, so we've covered education. Let's shift gears and talk about the workplace. The source mentions how a growth mindset can be a game changer in a professional setting, especially when it comes to uh, receiving feedback or dealing with setbacks.
It's such a crucial skill set for navigating the modern workplace,
Right.
which is often fast paced and constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Think about it. A growth mindset helps us see those constructive criticisms,
Right.
those moments where maybe we didn't quite hit the mark. Not
Yeah.
not as personal attacks, but as valuable opportunities to refine our skill and improve our performance.
That's a big one for me. I
Yeah.
tend to take criticism pretty personally, even when I know it's meant to be helpful.
Right.
So how do we actually shift our mindset to see feedback as a tool for growth, not a sign that we're somehow failing?
It's a practice for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that can be helpful is focusing on the specific actions or behaviors, not on ourselves as a whole.
Okay.
So instead of thinking, I messed up that presentation, right?
Try framing it as, okay, the structure of that presentation wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
I need to work on that aspect for next time.
So it's about separating our sense of self-worth from the feedback we receive.
Exactly.
We can still acknowledge areas for improvement without letting it impact our overall confidence.
Exactly. And when we approach feedback with that growth mindset,
Yeah.
we're more likely to take it on board, make those adjustments, and ultimately become even more skilled and successful in our roles.
This also makes me think about how growth mindset can impact our relationships, both personal and professional.
That's a really insightful connection.
Yeah.
Relationships thrive on a growth mindset. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress,
Yeah.
constantly evolving and learning,
Right.
and that requires a certain level of flexibility and understanding from all parties involved.
So instead of expecting perfection from ourselves and others,
We embrace the fact that we're all going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
We're all
yeah.
going to have different perspectives, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's about learning to navigate those differences with compassion and understanding.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. It's about seeing conflicts or disagreements not as threats to the relationship,
Right.
but as opportunities for deeper connection and understanding. And when we approach those conversations with a willingness to listen, to learn, and to grow together,
Yeah.
it can strengthen our bonds in a really profound way.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change.
Yeah.
A growth mindset helps us adapt to that constant change, not just in ourselves, but also in the people we care about.
That's a great way to put it. And it reminds us that a growth mindset isn't just about individual growth.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture of growth in our relationships, our families, and even our communities.
Okay, so we've talked about education, the workplace, and relationships. What about personal goals? I know a lot of our listeners are working towards all sorts of amazing things, whether
Yeah.
it's fitness goals, creative projects, or even just taking better care of themselves. How does a growth mindset come into play here?
It's such a powerful tool for achieving our dreams.
Yeah.
A growth mindset empowers us to set ambitious goals,
Oh,
those
wow.
stretch goals that push us beyond our comfort zones, while also providing the resilience to keep going when we encounter setbacks.
Yeah.
And trust me, setbacks are inevitable no matter what goals we're
Yeah.
pursuing.
This is where that whole reframing failure as feedback
Yeah,
comes back into play, right?
exactly. I mean,
Instead of seeing a setback as a sign that we should give up,
yeah.
we view it as an opportunity to learn, adjust our approach, and come back even stronger.
Exactly. And the source material highlights the importance of breaking down those big, ambitious goals
Right.
into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah.
It's less about reaching that end goal in one giant leap
Right.
and more about making consistent progress day after day. It's about focusing on the process, the journey, and celebrating those small wins along the way.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us get overwhelmed by the sheer size of our dreams, and that can make it feel impossible to even get started.
Right.
But breaking it down into those smaller, more achievable steps makes it feel so much less daunting.
And a growth mindset reminds us that it's okay to struggle.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not have all the answers figured out.
Yeah.
It's that willingness to embrace the unknown, the messy, the imperfect that ultimately allows us to learn, adapt, and grow in ways we never thought possible.
This has been such an amazing exploration of how a growth mindset can truly impact every area of our lives.
Yeah.
It's not just some theoretical concept.
Right.
It's a practical tool for navigating challenges, building stronger relationships, and achieving our wildest dreams.
Absolutely.
But how do we make this a lasting change?
Yeah.
How do we integrate a growth mindset into our daily lives so it becomes more than just an idea we've read about?
Yeah.
That's what I'm really curious to dive into next.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From understanding what a growth mindset really is to exploring how it can transform different areas of our lives.
Right.
But now let's get down to brass tacks. The source material you've shared highlights some specific habits that can help make this whole growth mindset thing stick.
Right.
Because let's be real.
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand the concept.
Right.
It's another thing to actually live it day in and day out.
I love that you're bringing it back to practical application.
Yeah.
Knowledge is only powerful when we put it into, action. Right. And these habits are like the building blocks of a growth mindset lifestyle. They help us integrate those principles into our daily routines and make them a natural part of who we are.
Okay, so what's the first habit on our list?
The source starts with daily reflection.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Think of it as taking a few minutes each day to check in with your growth mindset GPS.
Right.
Are you still on course?
Yeah.
Do you need to make any adjustments?
Right.
Journaling is a fantastic tool for this, but even just spending a few moments in quiet contemplation can make a big difference.
This reminds me of something I've been experimenting with lately. A gratitude practice.
Okay.
Every evening, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that simple act shifts my perspective. Even on challenging days, it helps me focus on the positive and appreciate the small wins.
That's beautiful, and it ties in perfectly with a growth mindset. Gratitude helps us acknowledge our progress,
Yes.
celebrate our successes, and appreciate the lessons learned from setbacks.
Right.
It's about recognizing that even in the midst of challenges,
Yeah.
there's always something to be thankful for.
It's like that quote, gratitude turns what we have into enough.
Yes.
Okay, so daily reflection is a big one.
Yeah.
What's the next habit we should focus on?
The source highlights the importance of seeking feedback.
Okay.
Now, I know this one can be tough for some people, myself included. It's natural to shy away from criticism or feel defensive when we receive feedback that maybe isn't all sunshine and rainbows.
I feel that.
Yeah.
My instinct is to immediately explain myself.
Right.
Or justify my actions when someone points out an area where I could improve.
But here's the thing. feedback,
Yeah.
even when it's delivered in a way that maybe isn't ideal,
Right.
is an incredibly valuable source of information.
Yeah.
It helps us see things from a different perspective,
Right.
identify blind spots, and ultimately become better versions of ourselves.
It's like having an extra set of eyes, right?
Yes.
Someone else who can see things that we might be missing.
Exactly. And a growth mindset helps us approach feedback with curiosity and openness
Right.
rather than defensiveness or fear.
Yeah.
It's about remembering that the goal is not to be perfect,
Right.
but to continuously learn and grow.
So it's not about taking feedback personally,
Right.
but rather seeing it as an opportunity to improve. That's
Yeah.
a really helpful distinction.
Yeah.
Any tips for actually seeking out feedback?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it feels awkward to just like ask someone to critique my my work or my approach.
That's a great question. Specificity is key. Instead of asking a general question like "How did I do?" Try framing it in a way that invites more targeted feedback. For example, you could say, "I'm really trying to improve my presentation skills.
Okay.
Would you be willing to watch my next presentation and give me some feedback on how I could make it more engaging?"
That's so much better.
Yeah.
It feels less like I'm asking for a general evaluation and more like I'm inviting them to collaborate with me on my growth.
Exactly. And when you approach it with that collaborative spirit, people are usually more than happy to help.
Right. Right.
Okay. Moving on to the next habit, setting stretch goals.
Okay.
This one really resonates with me because I'm a big believer in pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
I love that term, stretch
Yeah.
goals. It implies that we're reaching for something just outside our current grasp, but not so far out of reach that it feels impossible.
It's about finding that sweet spot between ambition and achievability.
Yeah.
These goals should challenge us,
Right.
require us to step outside of our comfort zones, and ultimately lead to significant growth.
It's like that saying, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us, myself included,
Yeah.
shy away from setting those big audacious goals because we're afraid of failing.
That fear is totally understandable, but a growth mindset helps us reframe failure as an essential part of the process.
Right.
It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it, adjusting our approach, and coming back even stronger.
Yeah.
And remember, those stretch goals don't have to be massive, life-altering ambitions.
Right.
They can be smaller, more manageable goals that still push us beyond our current capabilities.
That's a good reminder. It's about consistently challenging ourselves, even in small ways, to keep that growth momentum going.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the final habit that the source recommends for cultivating a growth mindset?
This one might seem a bit unexpected, but it's incredibly powerful. Practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
It might seem unrelated to growth mindset,
Right.
but it actually plays a crucial role in fostering a positive outlook that aligns perfectly with those principles.
This is where it all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We talked earlier about my gratitude practice,
Yeah.
and I can see how that ties into everything we've discussed today.
Right.
Gratitude helps us shift our focus from what we lack to what we have,
Yeah.
from our shortcomings to our strengths, from our failures to our successes.
Yes.
It's about appreciating the journey,
Yeah.
even with all its bumps and detours.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective is fundamental to a growth mindset.
Right.
Gratitude helps us celebrate our progress, acknowledge the lessons learned from challenges,
Yeah.
and cultivate a sense of optimism and resilience that fuels our continued growth.
Wow, this has been such an incredible deep dive into the world of the growth mindset. We've explored the core concept, learned strategies for overcoming obstacles, discovered how to apply it in different areas of our lives, and now we have 4 powerful habits to help us make this mindset shift stick.
It's been a truly fulfilling journey, and remember, cultivating a growth mindset is a lifelong practice.
Right.
It's about continuous evolution, embracing challenges, and celebrating the beauty of learning.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about striving to be a little bit better each day.
So well said. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. A huge thank you to our expert for sharing your insights and wisdom with us today, and to all our listeners. I hope this deep dive has inspired you to embrace challenges, seek feedback, practice gratitude, and keep that growth alive. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination, and every step we take, no matter how small, brings us closer to becoming the best versions of ourselves. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
All right, so we've spent some time exploring the power of a growth mindset.
Yeah.
But, let's get real.
Yeah.
Putting it into practice,
Absolutely.
not always easy.
It's a journey.
Right. So that's why today we're doing this deep dive, and it's all about tackling those sneaky myths that can trip us up
For sure.
on our growth journeys.
Absolutely.
We'll also be diving into how to cultivate a growth mindset within teams.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we rarely achieve anything great in isolation, right?
Perfect.
And get this, we're even going to explore how mindfulness,
Oh, yeah.
yes, mindfulness can be a secret weapon
I love it.
for supercharging your growth.
Yeah. I'm excited to unpack all of this with you.
Okay.
There are definitely some common misconceptions about growth mindset
Right.
that can really hold people back.
For sure.
And the connection to mindfulness is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's something I've seen make a real difference in my own work and life.
Okay, let's dive right into these myths.
Let's do it.
The first one I hear all the time is a growth mindset means you have to be positive all the time.
Okay.
This one always makes me chuckle a bit. I mean, have you met life?
Right.
It throws some pretty serious curveballs.
Absolutely.
So how do we reconcile the ups and downs of life
Right.
with this idea of a growth mindset?
Yeah, that's where the myth falls apart.
Okay.
It's not about denying the negative or
Right.
slapping on a fake smile
Uh-huh.
when things get tough.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging those difficulties
Yeah.
while still believing in the possibility of improvement
Okay.
through effort and learning.
Uh-huh.
Think of it like this. You mentioned those curveballs life throws.
Yeah.
A growth mindset is about seeing those curveballs
Right.
as opportunities to practice your swing,
Okay.
to adapt,
Yeah.
and to ultimately hit a home run,
Right.
even if it takes a few tries.
I love that analogy. It's not about pretending the curveballs don't exist.
Right.
It's about how we choose to approach them.
Yeah.
So it's less about toxic positivity
Yeah.
and more about a resilient, optimistic outlook.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, it's that resilience, that
Yep.
ability to bounce back and keep striving.
Yeah.
That defines a growth mindset.
Oh,
It's about that inner voice that says,
right.
okay, this is tough,
Yeah.
but I can learn from this,
Uh-huh.
I can adapt,
Right.
and I can come out stronger on the other side.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, myth number 2. Effort alone is enough.
Okay.
Now, I'm all for hard work, but I have a feeling there's more to the story here.
Definitely.
No?
Effort is essential.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
But here's the catch.
Okay.
It needs to be directed effectively.
Uh-huh.
Think of it like you're learning a new language.
Okay.
You could spend hours passively listening to tapes,
Right.
but without focused, steady,
Yeah.
deliberate practice
Right.
and feedback from a native speaker,
Right.
your progress will be limited.
Makes sense.
It's about combining that raw effort
Okay.
with strategic learning
Yeah.
and a willingness to adjust your approach based on feedback.
I've definitely fallen into the trap of thinking sheer effort was enough.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to learning new skills.
Right.
How can I be more strategic in my efforts to, let's say, finally master that coding language?
Yeah.
I've been meaning to learn and avoid that trap.
It's all about moving from a mindset of just doing the work
Okay.
to one of deliberate practice.
Right.
So for your coding example,
Okay.
instead of passively watching tutorials,
Right.
set specific goals
Mhm.
for each practice session.
Okay.
Maybe one day you focus on mastering a specific function,
Right.
and the next day you build a mini project applying that function.
Gotcha.
And crucially, seek feedback.
Okay.
Join a coding community.
Right.
Share your work
Hmm.
and get input from more experienced coders.
Yeah.
That feedback loop is where the real growth magic happens.
That's really helpful. It's about working smarter, not just harder.
Yeah.
Okay. Myth number 3. You either have a growth mindset or you don't.
Okay.
Is this like some kind of personality trait you're born with?
Right.
Because that feels a bit limiting, doesn't it?
Thankfully, no. Mindset isn't set in stone.
Okay.
Even the most ardent growth mindset advocates
Mm-hmm.
can slip into fixed mindset thinking
Right.
from time to time.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Right.
We all have those moments of self-doubt
Yeah.
or fear of failure.
For sure.
The key is recognizing
Right.
when those thoughts are holding us back
Yeah.
and consciously choosing to shift back to a growth mindset.
So it's about recognizing those fixed mindset patterns and actively reframing them.
Exactly. It's like catching yourself.
Okay.
Before you say something you'll regret,
Right.
you pause,
Yeah.
you reevaluate,
Right.
and you choose a different approach.
Okay.
With mindset, it's about catching those limiting beliefs
Right.
and choosing to replace them with more empowering ones.
Okay.
It's a process, not a switch you flip on and off.
Okay. Last myth on our list. Growth mindset is only for work or school.
Right.
I have a feeling this one's especially important for our listeners because, well, life is more than just work and school, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This myth is particularly pervasive.
Uh-huh.
But growth mindset isn't limited to specific settings.
Right.
It applies to everything, your relationships, your hobbies,
Yeah.
your health, your creative pursuits,
Right.
even your approach to personal challenges.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But wouldn't focusing solely on celebrating effort lead to complacency about results?
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what if I'm putting in a ton of effort, but my strategies are off
Yeah.
and I'm not actually achieving my goals?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Celebrating effort is important,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't overshadow the need for effective strategies
Right.
and a focus on continuous improvement.
Right.
It's about finding that balance between recognizing the hard work
Ah.
and being honest with ourselves about what's working
Right.
and what needs to be adjusted.
So whether I'm trying to improve my photography skills,
Yeah.
nurture a meaningful relationship, or
Yeah.
even work through a personal setback,
Absolutely.
a growth mindset can be a valuable tool.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's about that belief
Right.
in your ability to adapt and grow in
Mhm.
any situation.
Yeah.
It's about approaching challenges as opportunities for learning
Right.
and seeing setbacks as stepping stones
Oh, okay.
rather than roadblocks.
I love that seeing setbacks as stepping stones.
That's powerful.
It's a much more empowering perspective.
Yeah.
So now that we've busted some of these common myths,
Okay.
let's shift gears and explore how these principles can be applied to enhance teamwork.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A growth mindset can be a game changer when
Right.
it comes to collaboration
Yeah.
and creating a truly high-performing team.
I'm all ears. What are some key strategies we can use to foster a growth mindset environment within our teams?
It all starts with encouraging open communication and collaboration.
Okay.
Think about creating a space
Yeah.
where team members feel comfortable
Right.
sharing their ideas, challenges, and even mistakes
Okay.
without fear of judgment.
Right.
It's about building psychological safety,
Okay.
that sense of trust
Okay.
that allows people to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and take risks
Right.
without worrying about being penalized for it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually create that sense of psychological safety?
Right.
It feels kind of abstract.
It's less about a grand gesture
Okay.
and more about consistent behaviors and practices.
Right.
It starts with leadership.
Okay.
Are leaders modeling vulnerability?
Right.
Are they admitting their own mistakes
Uh-huh.
and demonstrating a willingness to learn from others?
Yeah.
Are they actively soliciting feedback
Right.
and creating space for diverse perspectives?
Okay.
These behaviors signal to the team
Right.
that it's okay to not have all the answers,
Yeah.
to experiment,
Mhm.
and to learn from setbacks.
So it's about walking the walk rather than just talking the talk, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about embodying the principles of a growth mindset in your actions,
Right.
not just your words.
Makes sense.
And beyond leadership,
Yeah.
it's about creating structures and processes
Right.
that support open dialogue. Think regular check-ins,
Okay.
where the focus is on learning and problem solving
Right.
rather than just reporting on progress.
Okay.
Think brainstorming sessions,
Right.
where wild ideas are welcomed and constructive feedback is valued.
These are great practical tips.
Yeah.
It feels like a blueprint for creating a truly supportive and high-performing team.
It definitely is a powerful approach. And you know what's really interesting?
What's that?
There's another element that can supercharge growth mindset,
Okay.
both individually and within teams.
Ooh, tell me more. What's the secret weapon?
It might seem unexpected, but it's mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Yeah,
That's fascinating. I wouldn't have immediately connected the two,
right.
but I'm really curious to hear how they work together.
I was skeptical at first too,
Okay.
but the connection is profound.
Right.
It's all about how mindfulness helps us become more aware
Yeah.
of our thoughts and emotions,
Okay.
especially those sneaky fixed mindset thoughts
Uh-huh.
that tend to creep in
Right.
when we're stressed
Yeah.
or facing a challenge.
So instead of getting swept away by thoughts like, I'm not good at this,
Right.
or I'll never figure this out,
Exactly.
mindfulness helps us notice them without getting completely caught up in them.
Exactly. It's about creating that space
Oh, okay.
between the thought and your reaction to it.
Gotcha.
And once you've noticed those thoughts,
Yeah.
you can start to reframe them.
Okay.
For example,
Yeah.
instead of, I'm not good at this, you might shift to, I'm still learning and I'm willing to put in the effort to improve.
It's like you're training your brain to adopt a more growth-oriented perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Are there any other mindfulness techniques
Oh, yeah.
that can help with this?
There are so many,
Okay.
but one of the most powerful and accessible practices
Yeah.
is focusing on your breath.
Okay.
It's such a simple yet effective way
Right.
to anchor yourself in the present moment.
Right.
When you find your mind wandering to
Yeah.
worries or self-doubt,
Uh-huh.
gently redirect your attention to your breath.
Okay.
Feel the sensation of each inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
It's like hitting the reset button
Okay.
on your mental state.
I can see how that could be helpful. In those moments when you're feeling overwhelmed or stuck in a fixed mindset,
Absolutely.
it's like mindfulness gives you a tool to break free from those negative thought spirals. But we're going to have to pause here for now. Stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore the connection between mindfulness and growth mindset in even more detail.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were discussing how mindfulness can help us become more aware of those sneaky fixed mindset thoughts.
Right. And we were about to hear more about how focusing on our breath can help.
Right.
I'm really intrigued by this connection between breath work and cultivating a growth mindset.
It's a game changer,
Yeah,
honestly.
stop
Think
it.
about it when you're stressed or anxious.
Yeah.
Your breath becomes shallow and rapid. It's like your
Oh.
body's fight or flight response is kicking in.
Yeah.
But when you consciously slow down and deepen your breath,
Okay.
you signal to your nervous system that it's okay to relax.
Okay.
It's like flipping the switch from panic to presence.
So by simply paying attention to our breath, we can actually shift our physiological state.
Yes,
That's pretty powerful.
it really is. And the beautiful thing is,
Yeah.
you can practice this anywhere, anytime.
Right.
Feeling overwhelmed by a deadline at work?
Yeah.
Take 5 deep breaths,
Okay.
focusing on the rise and fall of your abdomen.
Okay.
Notice the tension easing in your shoulders.
Yeah.
It's like a mini meditation that you can carry with you everywhere.
I love that.
Yes.
It's like having a portable stress relief kit.
Right.
But how does this tie back to developing a growth mindset?
When you're calmer and more present,
Yeah.
you're less likely to get hijacked by those negative fixed mindset thoughts.
Okay.
You create space for more rational, solution-oriented thinking.
Right.
And this brings us to another key benefit of mindfulness for growth:
Okay. What is it?
enhanced focus.
Explain that connection for me. How does being more present help with growth?
When your mind is constantly flitting
Yeah.
between past regrets
Right.
and future worries,
Uh-huh.
it's hard to fully engage with the task at hand.
Okay.
You're scattered,
Yeah.
you're distracted,
Right.
and you're more likely to make mistakes.
That makes sense.
But when you practice mindfulness,
Yeah.
you train your mind to stay anchored in the present moment.
Okay.
You're not dwelling on past failures
Right.
or fretting about what might go wrong.
Yeah.
You're simply present with the task,
Right.
with the learning process,
Okay.
with the experience unfolding before you.
It's like mindfulness clears away all the mental clutter so you can really focus on what matters in the moment.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. I know for me, when I'm trying to learn something new
Yeah.
and I start getting self-critical or anxious,
Right.
I completely lose focus. It's like my brain goes into sabotage mode.
Exactly. And that's where mindfulness can be such a powerful antidote.
Okay.
It helps you interrupt those negative thought patterns
Uh-huh.
and redirect your attention to what's actually happening,
Right.
the process of learning,
Right.
to the steps you can take to improve.
So mindfulness essentially helps you stay in that growth zone even when things get tough.
Yes.
It's like having a secret weapon for resilience.
I like.
Speaking of resilience, I've heard that mindfulness can also help with managing stress,
Oh, absolutely.
which, let's face it, is a pretty constant companion on the path of growth.
It is.
Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Growth mindset can sometimes feel overwhelming,
Right.
especially when tackling ambitious goals.
Yeah.
You're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Oh.
You're facing challenges.
Right.
You're bound to experience setbacks.
Right.
This is all part of the process.
Yeah.
But it can definitely trigger stress.
So how does mindfulness help? Does it magically make the stress disappear?
It's not about making stress vanish.
Okay.
Because, let's be real,
Yeah.
stress is a natural part of life.
For sure.
It's about changing our relationship to stress.
Okay.
Mindfulness helps us become more aware
Yeah.
of the physical and emotional sensations of stress.
Right.
Instead of getting swept away by that fight or flight response.
All right.
We can observe those sensations without judgment.
Okay.
This allows us to respond to stress more skillfully
Okay.
instead of reacting impulsively.
So it's like mindfulness gives us that pause button,
Yeah.
that space between the stress trigger and our reaction to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that space,
Okay.
we can choose a more constructive response.
Okay.
We can take a few deep breaths.
Right.
We can reframe our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We can remind ourselves that this challenge is an opportunity for growth,
Right.
not a threat to our well-being.
That's a really powerful shift. It's not about eliminating stress. It's about transforming how we relate to it.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how mindfulness is like this hidden superpower for amplifying growth mindset.
Yeah.
It's not just about changing our thoughts. It's about changing our whole way of being.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
And here's another piece of the mindfulness puzzle.
What's that?
It cultivates gratitude.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have immediately connected gratitude with stress management.
Okay.
How does that work?
When we're stressed,
Yeah.
it's easy to get fixated on what's wrong,
Right.
what's lacking,
Yeah.
what's not going our way.
Mm-hmm.
This negativity bias can really fuel those fixed mindset thoughts
Right.
and keep us feeling stuck.
Yeah.
But gratitude shifts our focus.
Okay.
It helps us appreciate the good things in our lives,
Okay.
the progress we've
Yeah.
made, the support we have,
Yeah.
even the small wins that we might otherwise overlook.
So it's like mindfulness helps us zoom out from that narrow focus on problems and appreciate the bigger picture.
Exactly. And by cultivating gratitude,
Yeah.
we fuel a sense of positivity
Right.
and possibility.
Right.
We remind ourselves that even amidst challenges,
Yeah.
there's still so much to be thankful for.
Right.
This could be incredibly motivating,
Yeah.
especially when we're feeling discouraged or tempted to give up on our growth goals.
This is all so insightful.
Okay.
I'm already feeling a shift in my own mindset just by talking about these practices.
I love it.
But let's be real, developing mindfulness and a growth mindset takes time and effort, right?
Absolutely. It's an
Right.
ongoing journey,
Right.
not a quick fix.
Right. For sure.
There will be days when your mind feels like a wild monkey flitting from one thought to the next.
Right.
There will be times when you slip back into old patterns of self-doubt and negativity.
Right.
And that's okay.
Okay.
The key is to be patient with yourself,
Yeah.
to approach this journey with a sense of curiosity and self-compassion,
Right.
and to remember that even small, consistent efforts can make a big difference over time.
I love that reminder. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out on this path?
Okay.
Where's a good place to begin?
Start small. Don't feel like you need to overhaul your entire life
Okay.
or spend hours each day meditating.
Right.
Even 5 minutes of mindful breathing
Yeah.
or a simple gratitude practice can have a profound impact.
Okay.
The key is consistency. Make it a habit like brushing your teeth.
Right.
And remember, mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind
Yeah.
or achieving some blissful state.
Okay.
It's about becoming more aware of what's happening within you without judgment.
That's really helpful advice. It feels much less intimidating than what I often hear about mindfulness.
Good.
Are there any other tips you'd recommend for integrating mindfulness and growth mindset into daily life?
One strategy that I found really helpful
Okay.
is creating mindfulness reminders throughout your day.
Okay.
It could be a sticky note on your computer,
No?
a recurring alarm on your phone,
Yeah.
or even just a small object on your desk
Okay.
that you associate with mindfulness
Right.
whenever you see it.
Yeah.
Take a few deep breaths and reconnect with the present moment.
I love those ideas. It's like building little mindfulness checkpoints into your day.
Right.
Are there any specific times when these practices are particularly helpful?
They can be especially beneficial during times of stress or transition. For
Okay.
example,
Yeah.
if you're feeling anxious about an upcoming presentation,
All right.
take a few minutes to practice mindful breathing or gratitude.
Oh.
It can help you approach the situation with more calm and clarity.
Right.
Or if you're feeling stuck on a challenging project at work,
Yeah.
take a mindful walk,
Okay.
focusing on the sensations of your feet on the ground
Uh-huh.
and the sights and sounds around you.
Right.
This can help you clear your head and return to the task with fresh perspective.
That's so practical and helpful. It's like having a toolkit of mindfulness techniques that you can use whenever you need them.
Right.
But what about applying these principles to teams?
Yes.
How can we cultivate a more mindful and growth-oriented work environment?
This is where it gets really exciting. Imagine a workplace where mindfulness is embedded in the culture,
Okay.
where teams are encouraged to practice together,
Right.
and where leaders model these principles in their actions.
It sounds almost utopian,
Right.
but seriously, how do we start moving in that direction?
One powerful approach is to incorporate mindfulness practices into team meetings or workshops. Even a few minutes of guided meditation or mindful breathing at the start of a meeting
Okay.
can help create a more focused and present atmosphere.
I can already feel the collective eye rolls from some of our listeners who are thinking, yeah, right, like my boss is ever going to let us meditate in a meeting.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It definitely requires a shift in mindset,
Right.
but more and more companies are recognizing the benefits of mindfulness in the workplace.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a formal meditation session.
Right.
It could be as simple as starting each meeting with a round of gratitude sharing
Yeah.
or taking a mindful moment to connect with each other
Okay.
before diving into the agenda.
Those are great ideas. It's about finding ways to weave mindfulness into the fabric of the workday
Yes.
in a way that feels authentic and accessible.
Exactly. And beyond formal practices,
Yeah.
encouraging a culture of mindfulness in the workplace
Right.
can be as simple as reminding team members to take breaks throughout the day,
Okay.
to step away from their screens,
Uh-huh.
and to connect with nature.
Right.
These micro moments of mindfulness can make a big difference in reducing stress,
Okay.
improving focus, and fostering a sense of well-being.
Those are such simple yet effective ways to integrate mindfulness into the workday.
Yes.
It's about creating a more balanced and humane work environment.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask, what about those managers or leaders who are resistant to these ideas? How do we convince them that mindfulness isn't just some woo-woo trend,
Yeah.
but a valuable tool for boosting productivity and team performance?
That's a great question, and it's one that I get asked a lot.
Yeah.
The key is to frame mindfulness in terms of its tangible benefits.
Okay.
We've talked about how mindfulness can reduce stress,
Right.
improve focus,
Uh-uh.
enhance emotional regulation,
Right.
and even boost creativity.
Yeah.
All of these factors have a direct impact on employee well-being and productivity.
So it's about focusing on the data, on the evidence that mindfulness can actually improve the bottom line.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a growing body of research demonstrating the benefits of mindfulness in the workplace.
Right.
And beyond the data,
Yeah.
there are countless real-world examples of companies
All right.
that have successfully integrated mindfulness practices and seen remarkable results.
Can you share an example?
Sure.
I'm sure our listeners would love to hear about a company that's actually walking the talk.
One company that comes to mind is Google.
Okay.
They have a program called Search Inside Yourself,
Right.
which is based on mindfulness practices and emotional intelligence training.
Okay.
And the results have been incredible.
Yeah.
They've seen improvements in employee well-being,
Uh-huh.
communication,
Right.
and even leadership skills.
That's impressive. It's inspiring to hear about companies like Google embracing these practices and seeing real results.
Yes.
But beyond the company-wide initiative,
Right.
what can individual team members do to cultivate a more mindful and growth-oriented work environment, even if their organization isn't quite there yet?
That's where the power of individual action comes in.
Okay.
Remember, change often starts from the ground up.
Right.
Even if your company isn't formally promoting mindfulness,
Yeah.
you can still integrate these practices into your own workday.
Okay.
You could start by setting an intention to be more mindful in your interactions,
Uh-huh.
to listen more deeply,
Okay.
to respond with greater awareness,
Right.
and to approach challenges with a growth mindset.
So it's about modeling the behavior we want to see,
Yes.
even if we're not in a leadership position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can be a mindfulness champion within your team, even if you're not the CEO.
Okay.
And you never know, your actions might inspire others to follow suit.
That's such a hopeful message. It's empowering to know that we all have the capacity to create positive change,
Yes.
regardless of our position or title.
Absolutely.
This has been such an enlightening conversation.
Yes.
It feels like we've just scratched the surface of this fascinating intersection between mindfulness and growth mindset. But we're going to have to pause here for now. Stay tuned for part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll wrap up our exploration and leave you with some actionable takeaways. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into growth mindset and mindfulness. We've covered a lot of ground, from myth-busting to team dynamics to the surprising connection between mindfulness and resilience.
It's been a fascinating
It
exploration,
has.
and I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to apply some of these concepts to their own lives.
I think they are. But before we wrap up, I'd love to pull out some key takeaways for our listeners to ponder as they continue their growth journeys.
Sounds good to me. Where do you want to start?
Let's circle back to those myths we busted earlier. They can be so sneaky, so pervasive. I know I've fallen prey to them more times than I'd like to admit. What's one myth that you think is particularly important for our listeners to challenge?
I think the myth that you either have a growth mindset or you don't is particularly damaging. It creates this false dichotomy that can make people feel stuck or discouraged if they don't see themselves as naturally growth-oriented.
The reality is mindset is fluid. We all have moments of fixed mindset thinking, even the most successful people. The key is recognizing those moments and consciously choosing to shift back to a growth mindset.
That's such an important reminder. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our mindset even when it feels like we're stuck in a rut.
Exactly. And remember, it's a practice, not a destination. You're not going to suddenly transform into a growth mindset guru overnight. It's about consistently choosing to approach challenges with curiosity, resilience, and a belief in your ability to learn and grow.
Speaking of challenges, let's talk about applying a growth mindset to teams. I know a lot of our listeners are part of teams, whether at work in their communities or even in their families. What's one key insight that you think can help teams unlock their potential? I think the most important thing is to create a culture of psychological safety. This means fostering an environment where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas, asking questions, admitting mistakes, and offering feedback without fear of judgment or retribution.
I love that. It's about creating a space where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
Exactly. When people feel safe to be themselves, to take risks, and to learn from their mistakes, that's when true innovation and collaboration flourish.
So how do we actually create that kind of environment? It sounds great in theory, but it can be challenging to put into practice, especially in high-pressure work environments.
It starts with leadership.
Yep.
Leaders need to model vulnerability, to be open about their own struggles and mistakes, and to create space for others to do the same. They also need to actively solicit feedback, both positive and negative, and to demonstrate a willingness to learn from their team members.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Exactly. And beyond leadership, it's about creating structures and processes that support open dialogue and collaboration. This could mean implementing regular check-ins, where the focus is on learning and problem-solving rather than just reporting on progress. Or it could mean incorporating brainstorming sessions where wild ideas are welcomed and constructive feedback is valued.
These are great practical tips, and it all ties back to cultivating a growth mindset, both individually and collectively. Now, I can't let you go without talking about mindfulness. This connection to growth mindset has been so eye-opening for me. What's one mindfulness practice that you'd recommend to our listeners who are eager to experience these benefits for themselves?
I'd recommend starting with mindful breathing. It's such a simple yet powerful practice that you can do anytime, anywhere. Simply find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you like, and bring your attention to your breath. Notice the sensation of each inhale and exhale. Don't try to control your breath, just observe it. If your mind wanders, which it inevitably will, gently guide it back to your breath.
I love that. It's such a simple, accessible practice, yet it can have such a profound impact on our mental and emotional state.
It really can. And the more you practice, the more you'll notice the benefits. Reduced stress, increased focus, enhanced emotional regulation, and even greater compassion for yourself and others.
This has been such an enriching conversation. I feel like we've only just begun to explore this fascinating intersection between mindfulness and growth mindset. But as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. Growth is a journey, not a destination. It's a lifelong process of learning, evolving, and expanding our capacity for resilience, creativity, and connection.
Beautifully said. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Seek out communities, resources, and mentors who can support you on your path.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself. You got this.